right. What a wonderful weekend this has been. This is Sunday, and yesterday we celebrated my son's first birthday.
Yes, it was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, we had so much fun too. He slept throughout the entire night and was like, boom, out. Like once we put him to bed, he was like completely out. But no, it was a lot of fun. So thanks for coming.
You had so many cute little details that you went into decorating, and the cakes and the cookies and everything it was perfect. It was so cute.
Oh, well, you know what's so funny is that, so the theme was what a wonderful world, wonderful, like spelled like one. And as I was like driving to work, I'd be like, oh, how cute would that be to have like little passport stamps? And Amazon has everything. So I was like so excited when I found something like that. I'm like, the kids will love it. And they did. So it was really fun.
Okay. And I totally loved your parting gift for the kiddos.
Oh,
so she has little flip crayons inside there, like the handwriting without tear flip crayons, which are awesome to use at work. And
so good.
Yeah. At home with your kiddos.
Right. And they fit perfectly in that little luggage, like favor thingy.
Yeah.
I was
cute.
Like, yeah, I know. They were like, such an OT. That was so fun. But okay. So today we are going to be chit-chatting a little bit about student life, being a new student, how you can study for your boards, being a new grad, all that good stuff, being a CI, and what we kind of look for in students. There's a lot of really good tips that I think we have.
I think so. And I mean, thinking back to when I was a student, that was, oh my gosh, like
the most nerve-wracking time, right?
Yeah. But like and it was so long ago. I have to really think about that. It's like maybe 15 or so years ago for me. Like,
don't date yourself.
Don't
date yourself. It was last year, Shannon. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh, so long ago.
No, it was. It was a while ago. But it's so funny because like there's certain parts of internship that I will never forget. Yeah. Through like the good, the bad, and the oh my gosh, a lot of really good moments that have, I think, shaped us as practitioners.
Yeah, really, really good experience. And I think so picking your internships, I don't know if your program let you pick where you were going to go. So mine did.
Oh, that's good.
And yeah. And so where
did you go to school again?
I went to DuVille College, so in Buffalo. And what's kind of funny about that in Buffalo is that at the time when I was going to school, there was 3 colleges that had an OT program, like in Buffalo, which is not like heard of. Because when I came here, there's none here in Fresno, and they said, okay, the closest OT school is like hours away. And so for me, when I graduated, it made it a little bit harder to find a job because there was a lot of us OTs right there.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
So yeah, that was partly why I ended up moving out here, because getting a job was kind of hard.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. But really nice that I had to, there was different programs offered. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so then I got to choose my internships. And I, at the time, didn't realize, but I picked very different internships.
Which is really good.
Yes.
Super
totally
good.
Would recommend that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of get as much experience as you can. So like before I got into my program, I didn't have to do like any observation hours. And so I went into my internships pretty like not knowing what to expect.
Fresh.
Yes, at all. I hadn't done any observation hours at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this was your first time observing an exposure in the real setting. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you choose like a setting that you were like interested in, or things that you just weren't like fully comfortable with?
My first one was something I was comfortable with. And something that I thought I would like. And it also was a paid internship.
Oh my gosh.
So it was through the VA.
That's so
And
nice.
that was really partly like a reason why I chose it. Mm-hmm. And so that internship was with adults, and it was a mixture. So I also liked that too. It was mental health, and then it was phys des. Oh. So it was a combo. And so I liked that idea of having those two different experiences in one internship. And I had a really great experience. Like the mental health.
How long was your
So the one I'm thinking about right now, this was the level 2, so it was 12 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And the mental health part of it was really eye-opening, and something that I think I definitely learned in that internship was just really the importance of connecting with your patient or whoever you're working with.
Just building that rapport. And
yes.
And sorry to interrupt, but just so for people who are interested in OT, there's 2 different types of field work. You have your level 1s, which are usually really short. They just give you exposure to the setting. Your level 2s is where you actually spend 12 weeks and you're actually treating, you're being monitored by your clinical instructor and whatnot. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So for this internship, the mental health part was really eye-opening to me. So my job was helping run groups. And so just like fun craft groups, some social groups. And then I also ran a POW group. Oh. And so being a part of that experience and meeting all of these people and being with them every day, it helps me.
And that's really, really good, because I feel like group treatments are a lot of fun. They are harder because you're now looking at multiple people in your groups. Yes. How many people were in the group?
Yeah, there was maybe 10 if they all came that day. So yeah, that is a lot. And it's they all tricky. Have different needs that you might be working on. So it really is challenging. But yeah, my takeaway from
a really
that,
good experience.
Yeah. Just just learning about how to relate to them, especially in the POW group, like hearing their stories.
What is the POW group?
So they were prisoner of war.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so we had a group where they were all sharing their experiences, and it was
interesting and so eye-opening.
Yeah, the trauma and things that they experience, and you just develop this empathy for them, and that part of it was really I think important to be exposed to early on, because we deal with this in every setting that we're in.
Exactly.
Either mental health or someone who's had trauma. And so, just really kind of taking that in and trying to build relationships from there. And you do develop that sense of empathy and that connection to them.
And I feel like that is such an important setting to really, I guess, get experience and exposure to, because when you're working in a mental health facility, unfortunately, there's this, in our society in general, there's this negative stigma, with mental health, but it's really, there's such a need, and advocacy and education for our society in general. So that way there can be more supports for, people who are having some challenges with mental health.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. And then so that was split with just traditional FISDs, adult FISDs, which was a really good experience learning how to help, with ADLs and ordering equipment and things like that for the home. So that was a really good internship. Did you have a mental health component in your fieldwork?
You know what? I did. So for my level 2, let me see. So kind of a fun story. We got to kind of choose, like we were able to rank the settings of where we wanted to go. And being that I was in San Diego, I wanted to kind of see the world in a sense. I mean, not to sound all dramatic like that, but I really wanted to go to another location. So I put in like Las Vegas, because of obviously it just looked like a lot of fun. And I was like, oh gosh, I can have like this friend come and visit this weekend. It's horrible to say that, but I'm just going to be honest. And so I really wanted to make the most of my experience. But now that I actually think back, I'm like, maybe that was a good idea that I didn't, or a good thing that I didn't go to Vegas. Because internship is really intense, especially when, you only have 12 weeks to really learn what you're doing, and it's either a pass or fail, and that really affects your graduation. So anyways, but I did get Vegas as one of my sites, and I was so excited, super pumped. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can live here and I can do this and do that. We can see this show. And at that time they had like the anatomy, like the body museum.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Really?
That was amazing.
You've been?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
See, I remember seeing the vessels, like the way they dissected that all out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So anyways, side note. But I really wanted to go to Vegas. And then all of a sudden, I think one night my advisor called me and she was like, so, they pulled the contract. You won't be going to Vegas. And I was like, oh, my heart broke.
Especially as a student, you're
yes.
like, oh no. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I have to, figure out location of where, I kind of was like, where am I going to go next? I really hope it's a setting that I want. And then she kind of was like, so she kind of go quiet. She's like, but there is another location that is open and I'm going to highly recommend that you go. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And then she was like, it's in North Carolina. And I'm like, seriously, I just got so quiet. I was like, straight face, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's across the country. And she's like, it's at the University of North Carolina. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, when I was younger, I used to watch UNC play Duke and all of that. And I'm like, maybe that might be a really cool experience. And so then I was like, sure, let's do that. And then it was so funny because when I told my parents, they're like, wait, you're going
Where are you
across the country? Like, oh my gosh, by yourself? Like, who are you going with? And that was one of the best experiences of my life because not only I never thought that I would ever move away from, first off, my hometown to go to San Diego and then have the guts to go across the country, like literally no one. But it was such an amazing experience. Like I was able to see, so UNC has, at the time they had 5 different hospitals and they had, a ton of outpatient facilities that I was able to, luckily spend some time in each because
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. So my CI, she had a different schedule where we were basically the ones working like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for longer days. So basically being that she had an alternative schedule, it gave me the opportunity to go to all those hospitals because she was like covering in and doing evaluations. Yeah. So, so there I was able to go into one of the hospitals that had a lot of the interventions there were psychosocial, and I was able to observe groups and look at evaluations for individuals with eating disorders, pretty much everything. I was able to really get a good experience of a lot of different things. I went to the lymphedema clinic.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, a lot of interesting things. And again, it was just expanding my knowledge of what we can do and how we can do it. And, and then I was exposed to pediatrics, and that's where she had mentioned to me, like, you're going to be a peds therapist. And I was like,
she knew.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess like the biggest takeaway from that was just kind of be open to exploring or going different places because you never know what you're going to learn from that.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah. And just, taking everything in and definitely asking questions. I know when I was a student, and I just kind of have more of a quiet, shy personality to begin with. So asking questions kind of in the beginning was hard for me. And then once I started feeling really comfortable with it, it's so important.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, just little questions that you might have that, it's so true when they say there are no stupid questions because...
Yeah, and I honestly believe that, if somebody were to ever tell you, like, oh, that's a stupid question, like that is probably the worst thing that anybody could ever say to somebody, and kind of going back to my level 1 internships where it was like just a short period of time. And like I mentioned before, you'll, not every experience may be perfect or good. And just realizing that if it isn't, that's okay too, because you're learning, what not to be when you become a therapist and whatnot. But when I went on one of my level 1 internships, I remember it was like, I don't know, I don't even remember how long. I know. Were they like 3 days or a week? I think it was a week.
Yeah.
And, it was it was at a facility, and I walked in, and my clinical instructor, she, like, I said hi, and she, like, I reached out my hand, and she was like, looked at my hand and didn't even reach back. And I was like, oh my gosh, here I am, like I was a student. I had no idea what I was really doing, and going into, it was just so intimidating. And honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, like, it was just really hard. But the good takeaway from that was I just will never do that.
Yes.
I would never want to intimidate the student, and I would definitely want to promote the communication and the asking of questions, because, even as practicing therapists now, we constantly are asking questions like, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And, just really building up your students so they can feel confident in asking questions, because that's what it's like an evolving and growing field. So you're not going to always know the answer.
Yeah. And I think, definitely having that respect for each other. And also, as a student, realizing that maybe your CI, might not have an answer to your question. Exactly. And, we don't know everything just because we've been working for, however long, 5, 10, 15 years. There's always new things and things for us to learn. And students are good for us, practicing therapists, because they might, teach us something.
So many, there's new technologies, there's new research, and it's having a student, you're being educated on what they're learning currently, what's going on, the new trends and all of that fun stuff. And so it's just, we definitely learn from one another. Yeah. Right. It's like I don't know. I love it.
Yeah. I love having a student, and I love seeing their creativity and their
absolutely.
Yeah. Their passion it's really strong.
It is like
super high.
I had a level 1 who was like, till this day, I like still have some of her things that she like thought of while we were together, only for that brief period of time.
Yeah.
And I remember telling her, like, oh my goodness, you are seriously like a level 2 student. Like, you are on it. You know what you're doing. You're going to be such a great therapist. Yeah. And she's like, really? I'm like, yes. Oh my gosh. And she had a different way of looking at things. And I remember telling her, like, geez, I wish I had a form that looked, and I would kind of talk to her about certain details that I wish it had on there. And she's like, okay. And she like totally drew it out. She's like, what do you mean, like this? And I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, she had just a different way of thinking. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
I remember you telling me about her.
And like, I still, in fact, like, we're friends on Instagram and all that good stuff. And it's awesome. Like, she's so amazing, and she's an amazing therapist now.
But that is something for students to take away as well. Like, you can, hopefully your CI is open to hearing some of those ideas that you have, because you probably have a ton of ideas, and it's okay to share them. And
write them down, write your ideas down, because if you don't use it then, you may use it later. Just write them down. I don't know. Yeah. I have a notebook that I just kind of just jot ideas throughout my day.
Yeah.
That's a little tip.
Yeah, definitely a good tip.
Yeah, but definitely ask questions. And another point I think that would be really good to make too is, being that when I was in North Carolina, like I said, I was with my CI, but she allowed me to go with different therapists to see their helpful styles of evaluating, their styles of, treating. And so that was really helpful to see, because then I was able to be like, oh, and I still say certain terms or certain things the way, I had learned it as a student.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh, how funny. I still remember so-and-so when she would, say that during her evaluation. But it was really helpful because the way she approached it just was very natural. It didn't seem like it was, just like a straight yes or no question. It was kind of like, still open-ended where she was able to get a lot of good information. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was my first internship. Okay. And then my second one, so it's kind of ironic that I'm a peds therapist now, but I literally, when I was in school, like I mentioned, peds was not like my strength, because sensory was just like, I did not know what I was doing. I understood, I understood movement was, the vestibular system, but like, it wasn't my area of strength, and understanding like the developmental milestones. And I was like, there's too many numbers. There's too many things to remember. So I was like, there's just, it's impossible. How am I going to do that? However, another good tip for students is go into, and this is tricky and not a lot of people might do this, but I honestly feel that it'll help you with passing your boards, that if you go into a setting that you fully do not feel confident in and you are able to really challenge yourself for those 12 weeks, you learn so much within that time period that you're really able to, build off of the skills that you weren't strong with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that helped me, I feel like, with my boards. Because like when I was taking some of the PEDS questions, I was like, okay, I know this answer.
Yes.
And whereas I probably would have, not, that would have been a really struggle for me. So I was very thankful for that setting.
Yeah. I had a school setting for my second fieldwork.
Oh, you did?
Yes. And so that's,
Where at, in New York or?
It was in New York. Yeah. So, my biggest takeaway from that, I then realized I love working with children. I want to work with children. And same thing here with sensory. It was very intimidating for me because I think, I had a basic understanding, but I knew that there was so much more to it. And I didn't quite, you don't learn that all at once. But, having that basic understanding is where you're going to be as a student. And if that's what you want to continue, then you just, you're going to take more trainings and get more experience there. But my biggest takeaway from that fieldwork experience was my CI was like the sweetest CI ever. And so her interactions during IEP meetings and with the parents, and even her interactions with teachers, and we shared a room with the speech therapist, which was so nice.
Oh gosh, that is amazing.
Yes, we had a space, and
then you're right there. I used to love that when I shared with the speech therapist, because I would be like bouncing ideas off of. I mean, it was just such a nice collab.
It really is. It can be like that. I think if we had the opportunity to be together,
I
think speech therapists would probably say the same thing. Like we complement each other so well, and can definitely have really strong collaboration if we see each other and if we have the chance to like have that. But I think she was a really good model for how to work, like how to collaborate really well, how to treat families, and how to really be understanding and connect with them on an emotional level. Like I took that from her. It was her personality and the way that that was really impactful for me. And I feel like, just like you said, a lot of the way that, like the terms she would use and the way she would talk, I find myself still like 15 years later, like keeping some of the things that I heard her say and that she taught me. And so, even if, you're going to be learning a lot of good things, but also looking at those things that your CI is doing, how they're interacting with others, how,
organization.
Yes, huge. Like all of that, taking everything.
Really, taking everything in, and then learning from the different professions and what they do and how, in the school setting, it's really a multidisciplinary team. So, sometimes being in the schools can feel like very isolating for OTs, but it shouldn't in general, just because you have a team that you really should be collaborating with. But that's really cool. I didn't know that. That was your first question. Is it was the IEP process like the same?
Yeah.
Like here, there,
it was
in
pretty
California?
similar. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
from what I remember, it was pretty similar. Yeah.
Wow. That's really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. And they were even involved in the quarterly progress. They were really, the OT was very strong in that school. Like they participated in everything.
Oh, wow.
So
were they like contracted or with the district?
No, they were with the district. So that might have had a little something to do with it. But
okay.
Yeah, I think the OT and my CI there just really pushed for that, just being a part of all parts of.
Well, and before everything. That setting, it's so funny because I will bring this up, but a lot of people have the misconception that school-based therapy is primarily handwriting.
Yes.
Did you think that before going in?
I had no idea.
You know what? But I am going to be honest. I totally thought it was just handwriting. Like and when I was in school, I had no idea. I was just thinking, okay, handwriting. And you know what's funny? When I first initially went in as a new hire, I was, like, oh, the handwriting teacher is coming in. And I'm like, and obviously the more I learned, I'm like, wait, I'm not the handwriting teacher. I could totally do more. But that's interesting. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so my second internship on my level 2 was at a peds clinic with, and I also was in the school setting.
So you had
so I had 2 experiences in one, which was kind of tricky because I had 2 CIs. So, it was different because I'm like, okay, just again having to learn the learning style and how, one CI works and whatnot. But the positive from that was that I learned a little bit in the clinic setting, which helped with the sensory component because, again, I had no idea what, rotary movement, was that a learning, was that not? Like I had no idea. So that was super helpful for boards. And then I had the opportunity to work in the IEP process and understand that little process, which was also on the boards as well too.
Yeah.
Which was really, really helpful for me because it was not an area of strength. And I literally was, I was nervous about it. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to go and I'm going to fail. What am I doing? Like, but again, I totally went out of my comfort zone and I just tackled it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those internships that maybe, that offer like 2 different areas, they are a challenge, but they do have a lot of benefit that comes to it.
Oh, yeah.
So, I would recommend that. So we both had one and found it helpful.
Yeah, super helpful, which is, a lot of people ask me, all the time, like, what are your biggest tips for students? And, the biggest thing that I can honestly say is, there's never a question that is stupid, kind of like what you're talking about. And then there's never, don't feel like there's never an answer to something. You can ask, you can read books, first off. That's number one. You have the internet nowadays, but you have to also be careful with the, how, what's the word I'm looking for? Like how strong of a website they are, whether or not it's just like, you don't obviously want to go on Wikipedia and read up on whatever you're learning.
Yeah.
But, definitely research and learn about it and then ask questions. But not only to your CI, you have opportunity to ask multiple people, multiple therapists. Definitely do that. And then you can, you can always, build that relationship. And then after you graduate, you have those resources to go to because you will have questions as a new grad. When you graduate and you get your first job and you are actually on your own, it is so intimidating. And to have that, your previous CIs or your mentors in the back pocket definitely gives you like a feeling of comfort.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Networking is really important just to have that support. And just like you said, I actually used my CI not used her. Went back and talked to her about a couple things because she was my go-to person that I knew because I didn't know any other OTs. So, it was really helpful to network and, just building that relationship where you are at, because a lot of times, you get the opportunity to be offered a job at the end of your internship. Like if there's an opportunity there. So you do want to.
And you do a really good job. Yeah. And then, exactly.
Yeah, there's a chance that, you might come away with, a job interview.
Exactly.
Which would be awesome.
Which would be so nice. Yeah. I remember that first check, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? It was so, and another tip that I honestly think that would be really helpful. So going back to my level 2, the first placement in North Carolina, like I mentioned before, clear across the country, never been, by myself. And I started looking up places to visit and to go and sightsee, which was, I was studying and doing all of that, but I also needed my quote unquote self-care.
Oh yeah.
And I went to a UNC game and I really enjoyed the culture there. everybody was so into basketball, and I was there during the time of March Madness.
Oh,
and I'm
fun.
like,
Yeah.
I used to watch March Madness with my brothers, you know? And so being there during that time, I mean, everybody had something to do with basketball. And it was so funny because like I was in the hospital, and so UNC has that lighter blue.
Oh, yeah.
And I forgot what it was, but there was like the Duke blue color, which was a little bit darker. And literally, I felt like everybody stopped and was like, get this color out of here. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like just the culture, you know, of being there. And I remember going to a lot of really good restaurants there. And I met some really fun friends there that were also doing their internship.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it was, you know, and again, have fun with it. Enjoy where you're at, learn where you're at, be safe, but definitely take in the experience, because that was a life-changing experience for me, and I will always remember that. And, I was telling my husband, I'm like, we need to go back and just, visit, because I would love to go and show our son.
Oh, yeah, that would be awesome.
It was a really amazing experience. But don't you agree? Like I always tell the students, okay, if you're here, you need to go to this restaurant, really just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, because you could get caught up in like maybe just wanting to go back home. I mean, you're probably tired and just either go back home and study something or just relax. But it is really good to like get out. And like you said, self-care is important at that stage of your life as well.
Exactly.
Every stage. But
yeah.
like we just had students from Australia.
Yes.
Like how amazing it was.
Right.
There was two students.
I remember asking them, so how big exactly are the spiders? Like I remember literally like
and tell us about the kangaroos that are on the front yard. But yeah, they came and they were really cute. They were doing things like after work, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to check out this. And we were giving them tips on what restaurants to go to. So they made a whole experience from it, that was great.
That was so fun. One of my friends she actually went to North Carolina as well, but she was like 2 to 3 hours away from me, which we did meet up at one point. But her and her dad, like, to move her over there, they made like a whole map of where they drove over there. So they like stopped at each state and went to like the famous restaurants there, and she like she went to go see everything. And I'm like, so she went around like the bottom when she went to North Carolina, and then when she moved back to San Diego, she went through the other way.
Awesome.
So she made it a full, round trip. But it was really, really cool how she planned it out with her dad and made that into a little experience. But again, like, definitely be creative with how you can, have some fun and take it all in and really just enjoy that process. And although it may be super stressful, because it will be, I'm not going to sit there and lie, because there's times where you're just reading and you're learning, you're doing all that. But definitely taking it in and enjoying that part of this entire process, because, I don't know, it's so funny because it goes by so fast that, it's just, sometimes you're like, whoa, did I really enjoy that? Did I really take that all in? Because you're just trying to learn everything as you possibly can. Studying for your board. So how did that work? Did you?
Okay. So how I studied for my boards was I think I bought like 3 books of sample test questions.
Me too.
And that's all I did.
Me too.
Really?
Yes. Well, okay. So again, going back to peds, I knew that was, okay, this is another tip that I remember hearing from, I don't even know where, but I was like thinking that is such good advice. So they were saying that basically people typically will reread things that they feel confident in because they feel confident in, versus like reading something that they don't feel confident in and really studying that area. So that's what I kind of did. I focused, but I definitely did buy those books. I bought, what are they called? I think I have the National Occupational Therapy Certification Exam. It was like a really big booklet. And then I also bought like the different practice questions, which were so helpful.
Yes. The practice questions, like getting used to how they're going to ask the questions, and the questions that have all the right answers, but which one is, the most important. Those are always hard for me.
Oh yeah. Like there's like one tiny part of that answer that is different. And You have to pick and choose which one is right. Fingers crossed.
I had a professor who actually wrote questions for the practice exam. And so, obviously she couldn't tell us what questions were on there, but she said, number one thing is if the answers do all make sense to you, read them. And if there's one answer that is addressing safety, whether it be the safety of your client or your patient or the safety for yourself, like safety is always going to be number one. And I remember taking the board and
even in real life, that is just,
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like in the moment, like, okay, when you read through, safety is always going to be number one.
Exactly. That's a really good tip.
Yeah.
That's so true. I mean, even just like I said,
but you're right. In real life, safety
like is number one. But that is really good advice. True. But that's what I did. And I remember, I don't know, I'm such a visual learner that I had to write it out. I had to see it. I had to make videos about all of that. And then I would rewatch it. And then.
Oh, wow. You did videos.
Yeah, I did.
That's helpful.
That was so helpful. And I wish I had access to that, but I don't. I don't even know. I think it might be in one of my laptops. But And then I also took pictures of different things and I memorized and learned it. And then the most challenging part, again, was learning the developmental milestones because they're very specific. There's a lot of different, and every skill has its own developmental milestone that was involved with that. And then learning the sensory again and making sure that I, obviously I didn't know it all, but I had a little grasp on that. Yeah. But definitely those questions were so helpful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Super helpful. Yeah. And now, what I saw the other day? This is so random. I am so random. I like a lot of random facts. I really am. I'm like, oh my goodness. But there are these cool highlighters now that you can basically highlight and then erase. Like you come around and you erase it. And I'm just like, I literally was like, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to highlight everything. But it's that can be super helpful for students that are renting books maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I've never seen those before. So
right?
Sounds really cool.
I know. So random. Sorry, guys. Random fact.
You find the coolest things. You find the coolest toys.
Oh, I'm like the coolest friends. No. No, but those are all little things just to kind of keep in mind. The biggest thing though is asking questions and feeling comfortable with it. And if there's somebody out there that does make you feel like that is a stupid question, then honestly, take it with a grain of salt. Write your question down and ask some more. Mm-hmm. Ask other people, but keep that in mind that that's not how you want to be. Yeah. And the majority of therapists who genuinely take on students want to help you. Yes. They don't want to fail you. They don't want to make you feel like you are incompetent or that you don't know or that you don't belong or that you shouldn't have gone into OT. My biggest thing is if you love what you do, then anything else shouldn't matter. Yeah. You do everything legally, ethically, morally. That's all you can ask for. Yeah. And, so that's something to take away. And I strongly believe that. And I strongly tell everybody that I come in contact with that don't just take those negative comments or those negative thoughts, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. And just turn it into
a bright
positive,
side.
A bright side.
Turn it into a bright side. You bright side mama. Just kidding. Yeah. That's really, really good. So anyways, talk to me about how you felt as a new grad.
Okay. I was...
Were you super scared? Because I was. I'm all
really scared.
I was so scared.
Yeah. So one moment kind of sticks out in my head. This is jumping past the whole even interview process and getting your first job. But as my first job as an OT, my very first client, I was at San Joaquin at the rehab. And so I was
that was your first
yes.
job?
Yeah.
Really? Yes. I would have never guessed. Uh-huh. Wow. Yeah. Like I said, okay, so let me just pause because let me take that back. I'm just kidding. No, because so I worked at that same hospital as a rehabilitation aide, and Shannon was one of the individuals that actually like got me into OT. I had no idea what it was. And she really, I feel like, helped shape and mold like where I was as a student, because I was initially going into physical therapy, still have a lot of respect for that profession, but I had no idea what OT was. So you taught me a lot, but you literally were like an expert. I felt like you did everything. So like, I remember like looking like up to you being like, wow, she's so good. Like, and I would get so excited when I would see my schedule and be like, oh, cool. Okay. Well, I'm like on Shannon's schedule. Cool. I'm going to learn something, because you did, you taught me something all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, just starting, I was so scared. So 7 a.m, I have to help an older man, get dressed. I don't remember if he was like a hip replacement or whatever it was. And I walked into that room and I was just like, okay, okay. And so I'd never done a treatment session like that in my field work. And so I remember, I think I was just, I don't know. I was probably like shaking a little bit because I was that nervous. You're all like, yeah. And the nurse came in. She's like, "Oh, great, OT's here to get you dressed." And she looked over at me, and I know it was Nurse Colleen. Oh, so she's so sweet, like one of the sweetest nurses. And I think she could sense, like, okay, she's nervous.
You're like, so can you help me and stay here?
She helped me.
Oh, good.
She's like, okay, let's get a shirt. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And so got him dressed, like the head of the bed was up. He was laying down in bed, and I start getting his shirt on, like I was so nervous. I didn't break down and go through the steps. Like, okay, let's sit him up, let's get his balance at the edge of the bed, like none of that. And so if that happens to you, it's okay.
As long as the patient is safe. It's good.
Safe,
no, it's so true.
Just,
because there's so many different things that, I mean, and I feel like even now as practicing therapist, there are still moments where you're like, this is new.
Yes, it
throws
happens.
A curveball and you are completely back to where you were as a student. But realizing that every experience is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, that's so,
right?
Yeah, so true.
Like, I cannot stress that enough. And even this is what I tell some students. I always say that, you can develop this beautiful plan. Okay, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D with so-and-so, and I'm going to make sure that this happens. And then all of a sudden you get into that patient's room and something is off. And now that throws your entire intervention plan out the door, and you're having to think on your toes.
Yes.
And, talking about like being in peds or in schools, you could have this beautiful intervention and treatment plan, and then Johnny didn't take a nap. So guess what? Your whole intervention is completely thrown out the door, and you have to think on your toes and be ready for that.
And that's a really good, that's really good to talk about to your student, I think, as a CI.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I would tell the students that I have, the OT students that I have, exactly that, because I know they put so much work and effort the night before, like planning their treatment plan.
You're so proud of it. Yes. Like, you're just like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yes.
Yes.
And so preparing them for that. And so when it does happen, they're not as surprised. But then, like you said, it does teach them how to, be a little flexible and how to think on their toes. And,
and that comes with time. It's really, really tricky.
And then being, the CI is there to help you through that.
Exactly.
So they should be, we should be helping teach that skill as well, and showing them how to, okay, this isn't working, so I'll step in and help you, and this is how, this is where we're going to go.
Adjust it, and this is how you, and what I always say too is, say for example, you walk out of that session and you're like, oh my goodness, that was the worst treatment in the world. What was I doing? And I want to sit here and cry. Like, no, just take a step back, take a little, mental health break, go to the restroom, drink some water, come back, and take that experience as a learning experience, but take it as an opportunity to be like, okay, this is what I did right. Like, what I would do is I would kind of just write a list of all the things that I thought I did well. And then I would make a list for myself of all the things that I knew I needed to improve on.
Yeah.
And, and I wrote a little note on just everything about, and again, I feel like no intervention treatment is bad when you really take it apart and you learn from it. Yeah. So that way the next treatment is better. Right? And take it, don't feel like you're a failure. Don't feel like, oh my goodness, is this even for me? Because I know that can potentially, go through your mind. Yeah. Exactly. And you just want to know that it happens, and it doesn't mean that you're a failure. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be an OT. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that you need to fine tune a few things, and that's okay. Yeah. Because I fine tune things all the time.
Oh yeah. Every day.
Right? All the time. Every session I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm thinking this is great, and then it's just totally not. But that's how you learn.
Yeah. And that goes for everything in life. Oh yeah. Being a mom.
Oh my gosh. And it's, oh my gosh, yes. Being a mom, right? Like, so I'm super type A when it comes to work, and I have my list of to-do lists, right? But when you're a mom, boom, those lists are like out the door, right?
Oh yeah. It's or amazing. Your husband throws them out the
door. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. But yeah, so my husband's probably going to say, you are laughing way too much at that section. Oh my goodness, that's so funny. But, all of that is really, really good. And I do like the fact that you pointed out that CIs should definitely be there to support during those times, and not being intimidating or, and again, as a CI, because, when you have a really good CI who knows what they're doing, I think that's just automatic. It will be intimidating because that person has a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and now they're watching you with their eyes. And, so that kind of comes with the territory. But I think as CIs, definitely being open to answering questions and really being there to give them that feedback and kind of giving them different options, for treatment ideas. And then, again, another big thing is, don't be afraid to try something new. If you have, as a student, if you have an amazing idea, try it.
Yeah.
Try it, because that might be something that, boom, clicks, and now you've changed the entire intervention treatment.
Yeah.
Where it really, and so I can't stress that enough, but I really think that was a good point that you made about the CIs.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So you just recently had a student, didn't you?
Last year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, I don't know why I feel like it was more recent, but maybe because I was on maternity leave, so I missed.
You were gone for a while.
Part of it. Yeah, that was.
I love having students.
Yeah, me too.
I really like. I like what, like I said in the beginning, what I can learn from them as well. So
and just as a student, know that it is just as like challenging and good for CIs.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're having to now, like, okay, I want to make sure that you have the appropriate resources. So when you go home, you can read up on that.
There's a lot that goes in, I guess, that I put into being a CI, and that most CIs, I think, do.
Exactly. And so now this is another tip for your student. If you get any resources from your CI, utilize them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Read them. Come back. Show some interest that you read them. Because I had a student, I think, a few years ago, and I had provided a lot of resources, and it was so unfortunate because I was aware that she wasn't reading them. And as CIs, again, we put a lot of work, especially if you have a lot of resources. Yes. I mean, I feel like I have so many really good resources that I've gathered from different mentors that I've had, different therapists who were really strong therapists. And so I was sharing a lot of my tools that they could start building in their toolbox. Yeah. And it wasn't being read, and it hurt me. I was like, why don't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to help.
It totally is going to help.
So...
yeah, so that's definitely a takeaway. Really take advantage of the resources that you have, at the facility that you're in, and read up on it, ask questions about those things, because that helps just your process and your experience. But it also, again, keep it in your toolbox. You never know when you're like, oh, wait, I have something that can help address that.
Yeah.
Because I still use resources that I've, gathered as an aid.
Yeah.
As a new grad, as a student.
Oh, yeah. I have a ton, like a whole bin full. Probably
Right?
2 bins full. Yeah.
Me too. I feel like a little OT hoarder, but it's okay. Like, I love it.
I think most OTs are hoarders.
Right?
I mean, that's what we like to tell ourselves.
Because there's so many different things that, like,
and you'll never know if you'll need them.
Exactly.
You'll never know. Like, you want to keep them just in case.
Right? I'm like, don't throw that rubber band away because I may need it for so-and-so. But it's so true because, sometimes I will look. You guys have seen my bags, right? Well, I need to really clean it, so I don't want you guys to see it now. But sometimes I'm like, okay, I really need this, and I'm so thankful that I kept it in there. But, yeah, anyways, that's a totally side note. But, yeah, definitely read up on resources that are provided to you by your clinical instructor or any mentor that's in the hospital because – at times we could potentially be seeing an area of challenge, through your treatments. And if you were to read and utilize those resources, that would strengthen some of your areas of weakness, and that's not a bad thing that it's being pointed out.
Yeah.
Again, if it's being pointed out, it's only to help strengthen those skills to help eventually make it to where it's second nature. And then eventually it's ingrained in your brain where it'll help you pass your boards. It'll help you be a stronger therapist. It'll help you be a really good practitioner. So those are all things that'll eventually help the therapeutic process, eventually help your client outcomes, which is why we went into this profession.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Man, I'm going to drop this mic. Boom. Just kidding. No. So yeah, for me, as a new grad, I was lucky enough to get hired on. So it was like a nice little transition into being a new grad. However, I still, like I mentioned before, it was still very intimidating because now I was on my own. I didn't have that cushion of being able to turn around and ask my CI or whatnot. But, when I was on fieldwork at my PEDS site, it was a really different new experience for me because I was now working with children with autism, children with Down syndrome. I worked with a lot of other individuals, but that was I had never worked with anybody who had autism and to know what interventions to put into place to help best support their overall nervous system and how I really can help them with participation. It was just really, it was intimidating at first, and I didn't want to do anything that caused, a meltdown or those types of things. So that was really, really tricky for me. I remember going home and being like, okay, how I know that I need to obviously work on my skills. What do I need to do? And again, I felt like just trying things. And again, really, I really asked a lot of questions from multiple therapists on, limiting my my directions. Even the basics of how to interact was huge. And so, I took that away. And then as a new grad, I was able to use those foundations and really develop myself as a practitioner. But, again, I took a lot, and I felt like even like the first couple years, I was just learning the process. The terms.
Oh, yeah. It takes
time.
It
Everything.
takes time.
Like the evaluations, how to write up. And the other day I was looking back, I still have saved a few of my first initial evaluations. And although they're still really good, they're just, whoa, how different they have changed. I'm like, wow, okay, that's a different term that I used back then. You know what I mean? But it's really nice to see how you have evolved into where you're at now because, definitely it was with the experience and with the knowledge, with continued education, with mentorship, you really fine tune yourself as a practitioner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's totally the same thing that happened to me. So 4 years ago when I started getting in, or I accepted the position in the schools, I had no experience working with a child with autism or sensory dysfunction. So that was an area that I was learning as I was going and seeking out your mentorship and reading on my own. And then going back and reading an evaluation from 3 years ago, I was like, okay, so now I can tell my understanding's getting stronger.
Exactly.
But I mean, still, I'm not,
how you interpret it, how you look.
Yeah.
In fact, I just did a live video today and talking about just your observation skills and how you fine tune those, because, you can do an evaluation and you're looking at the grasp, but I mean, there's a million other things that you can be observing and evaluating that are really important when you're developing a comprehensive evaluation.
Yeah.
And I can't stress that enough. Like, just know that it's going to be a process. Know that it takes time.
Yeah. The learning doesn't stop. The learning continues.
It does. It definitely doesn't stop.
It should always,
it never should stop after graduation.
Yeah.
And, just because you graduate doesn't mean that you're done learning. It definitely is continuous. And I'm going to bring up another funny point is, so one time as a student, I think my level one was tricky for me. Oh my goodness. But my level one, I remember a mentor was telling me, well, technically not a mentor because I really shouldn't have even taken her advice, but she basically was like, don't go to any, don't take all of the courses at once, because once you take all of them, then you won't have anything else to learn. And I remember being like, oh, okay. And then once I left, I really took the time to think about that. And I was like, well, there's always new research, so you shouldn't
run out of things.
Exactly, right? And so now as a practicing therapist, I'm like, that was the most silliest advice that person could have given me. So again, always know that there is a never-ending amount to learn. And if you feel like you know it all, then I think it's time to get out of the field, because I honestly can sit here and say that as strong as I feel in sensory, I don't feel like I am an expert in it, even though I really have a good understanding of it.
Yeah.
And I understand vestibular really well, but again, I feel like there's always something to learn, and I'm taking a course with USC and I'm learning something new all the time, and I'm like, wow, so that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a learning process. Know that it's a process, but don't stop learning.
Yeah. So maybe next time we can talk a little bit more about that, because I'm getting ready to take a sensory integration in the schools through the STAR Institute. So
which is amazing.
Yeah. So I'm so excited.
I can't wait for you guys to tell me how that was.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can talk about that next time.
Absolutely. I'm all for it. Yeah. Definitely talk about that. Talk about the USC course with sensory integration to get certified. To get your certification in that, which has been amazing. Like I said before, I have a really strong understanding of sensory, but the process is continuous.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to learn a little bit more. And so right now we're on evaluation process, which I love, because there's so many different things that you can observe in a structured and an unstructured format, as well as your standardized sensory profile and whatnot. But that's more to come.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. We appreciate you listening in. We hope you have a great day. Don't stop learning.
Yes.
Right?
Never.
Okay? Don't stop learning. All right.
Okay. Yeah. So just be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast.
Absolutely.
Please.
You better do it.
Yes.
Just kidding. And definitely start and go to Instagram, follow our pages, Heart of Occupation and
Brightside Mama.
Brightside Mama and OT.Mommas.Life.
Yes.
And we're excited to be able to share this journey with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Bye. Wherever you're listening to your podcast, be sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, and rating. We would appreciate it. Until next time.